Hello, welcome to PCS weekly webinar. Today we are talking about the do's and don'ts of hiring movers. It is a part of our brand new moving series, and we are so honored to have moving industry experts here with us, Brad Reineking and David Cox. I'm Lizanne Lightfoot. I'm the senior content editor at PCS Grades. I'm a Marine Corps spouse and someone who just loves moving so much that I work in that field. And this is my wonderful co-host, Tessa Robinson.
Who doesn't love moving, Lizanne? It's so fun. I'm Tessa Robinson. I'm a guest content creator for PCS Grades, also an author, and also a mom. I have 2 kids, not 5, like my amazing co-host, Lizanne. But I'm so excited to be back here today to meet today's experts, Brad Reineking and David Cox. So first question, gentlemen, kind of a softball. Tell us about yourselves and your experience in the industry.
Well, thank you. This is Brad Reineking. I've been in the industry for close to 30 years now. Started out my first 20 years more in the commercial space, doing commercial moving and COD moving, very little military. In the last 10 years, I've focused all on Department of Defense moves with military members. And we do about 8,000 to 10,000 military moves per year. So hopefully I can enlighten your audience a little bit on some do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. We're sure you will enlighten all of us. I'm sure there are a lot of things that our audience will be so excited to learn about what not to do and what to do. David, over to you.
Tessa, thank you. David Cox, I'm the Executive Vice President with JK Moving Services in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Like Brad, I've been in the industry just about 30 years. Brad and I spent about 20 of those years working together at the same company. We have some history working together. In my current role, I oversee all household goods moving for JK, which handles about 16,000 global moves a year. We're the largest independent mover in the United States, and this year's ATA MSC Independent Mover of the Year. So very proud to be here, and thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have you guys here. I mentioned that this is the first episode in our brand new moving series. So today we're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of hiring your own movers. And we're really excited to have Charter Transportation and JK Moving working with us today. But I just want to give you guys a little sneak peek of what's coming up in the future. Tessa, do you want to share those topics with them?
Absolutely. April 12th, we'll be doing Just Tell Me What to Do, which will be awesome. May 10th, we have claims. How do I prevent them? And May 24th, moving day issues and how to handle it all. So lots of great topics in our future. But at the end of the webinar today, we will be giving away a moving basket full of essential supplies like a tape gun and tape, plus all the colorful stickers from the Stressless PCS kit, which is an amazing, amazing resource. And for our viewers who have been here before, you know the drill. If you're just tuning in and this is your first one with us, you are entered to win simply by asking a question or leaving a comment in the comment section below. So go ahead, ask your questions, share comments, concerns, suggestions, and shout outs. As you ask questions, we'll do our best to get our experts to answer them on the spot so that you have all the answers you could possibly need on what to do and what not to do as you go about your move.
Excellent. And I see we have some greetings coming in already from our audience. So keep it up. We can't wait to take all your questions. Hey, there's Ernie. He was a previous guest with us. Glad to see you again. And before we get into too many of our questions from this week about specifically hiring your own movers, Brad, I think you told us that there's some really big updates happening in the moving industry. And we want to make sure that we're sharing those with our audience as soon as they are available. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you were sharing with me earlier from Military One Source and this 7-day spread window update?
Right. So actually today going on right now is what US Transcom calls the Personal Property Forum. And earlier today on that, they were talking about Military One Source website and all of the tools that are there to help military members determine what type of PCS they want to do or what their entitlements are. So they said that they're having somewhat of a difficult time marketing that to everybody. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring it up on this call, just to let everybody know that if you go to militaryonesource.com and you can search multiple things on there, it'll talk about expectations or how to do your move, or if you're going to do a PPM move, or if you're going to do a full service move, those types of things are all on Military OneSource website. So one of the big things here, I know you've got the 7-day spread window up, but I'll just kind of talk about a little bit. What are your options if you're going to do a move? So really, there's two options. You can do a full service DPS move. That just, once you get your orders, I don't know the exact process, but you can log into the DPS system after you do your counseling, which is part of Military OneSource, and you can enter your move information in there. One of the big things that they're doing this year is they're having a 7-day spread window. They had the same thing last year if you moved, but they've changed it. So I just want to be clear on this, because this is something that everybody needs to know if they're going to book a move through regular DPS. So they are giving the TSP a 7-day window to service your move. You're required to log in and put the last possible day of your move into the system. And then the system will calculate to the left 7 days. So if your last possible day to get out is the 30th, because you're closing on your house on the 31st, you enter in the 30th as your last day. The system will calculate the 7 days, and it'll show the earliest day will be the 23rd. So you've got a spread from the 23rd through the 30th for the movers to come to your home. And the TSPs need to confirm that date within 3 days of booking the order. So it gets a little, to be honest, there's some issues with confirming a day for the end of June if the move books today, but we do our best to try to make sure that we accommodate all of the military members to what date that they really want to move on. There is another field in the counseling screen that is being showed on the screen right now, and that's for your preferred pickup date. So you'll be entering your latest pickup date, your preferred pickup date, and then it's going to be up to the TSP and you to negotiate what date's going to work best for you. If none of the dates work best, like if you only have to have that one day and you can't get out that day because the TSP says they can't do it, then you're going to have to go back to the personal property shipping office and see if they can rebook your move. But I know I've brought it up in previous calls, and I'll bring it up again. It's very, very important that everybody understands that they can request a specific TSP to do their move. If you moved with Charter in the past and you had a great experience, you can contact your move coordinator again, or send me an email at bradr@chartertsp.com, and we'll do our best to make sure that we can accommodate you and provide that great service again. So if you moved with any other TSP management company, you had that great experience, contact them, and I'm sure that they will help you try to figure out how to get your move booked with a TSP that they manage, so that at least you're setting expectations or setting the odds in your favor to get a good move like you had last time. So if you're going to go down that road to do a full service DPS move, as we call it, some of the things that I've talked about before are just making sure that you're flexible on your load dates and delivery dates, and that you understand the spread dates that we just spoke about. Get your move booked as quickly as possible from getting your orders. That way you'll avoid what we call all of the blackouts. As you get further into peak season, TSPs will black out dates just because they have no more availability to do it. And you might get yourself in a situation where you cannot get your move booked because all the TSPs are blacked out. And then it's very important at this point in time to understand that I believe most of the PIPSOs want members to do a full service DPS move because they have the business rules in place that protect the military members. So you've got the claims verbiage, the $6 per pound. We get punitive actions, suspensions, but if we don't follow those business rules. So it really protects the member, versus the next part that we're going to talk about is going out and doing a PPM move, a personally procured move. Right. A lot of people are wanting to do that now. It's because of some of the issues that the industry has seen with the PCS full service DPS moves. But I'll just caution you that the same thing can happen when you do your own PPM move if you're going out to a private moving company. If you're doing the move yourself, so that's the other two options under the PPM move. You could do the move yourself, go out, get a rental truck, load it, deliver it. You're responsible 100% for the move. The government will compensate you back at the government contracted cost for doing your own move. You'll need to submit weight tickets so that they know exactly how much to compensate you back at. And of course, you need to be within your weight allowance for your entitlement. At this point in time, it's just important to mention that we see a lot of members doing a PPM move in conjunction with the full service DPS move. So they might say that we've got all these heirlooms over here and we want to make sure that we move these things ourselves because we don't trust the mover to do it. And then maybe some other things like they know they might have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get their items.
Mm-hmm.
So they're packing essential things that they need in their home, the coffee pot, stuff like that. So they do their own Diddy move in conjunction with the DPS move, and they still get compensated back for doing the PPM move as long as they provide the weight tickets. So we see both of those options happening on my end. And then the other part of it is where a member just goes out and hires their own mover to do the entire move, which obviously they can do that. That's not a problem. They get the contractor cost again, and the moving company needs to get weight tickets and submit the weight tickets to the military family so that they can get paid back. At some point, sometimes, instead of doing the government contracted cost, if the government can't find a mover to do your move and you're having a hard time finding a mover and the prices are through the roof because it's the peak of the peak, the government will authorize what they call an actual cost reimbursement move, otherwise known as an ACR they talk about. But that needs to be specifically approved by the PIPSO. So as far as option goes, you've got your full service move, and don't be afraid to request a TSP. And you've got the personally procured move, of which you can do a Diddy move yourself or combine it with the DPS move, or go out and get your own mover to do the entire move. And there's been such great demand over the last 2 years for moving services that unfortunately, actually more than 2 years, we've seen a lot of non-reputable moving companies popping up or moving brokers popping up. And that's why I thought it was important to have my good friend David Cox on the call that can talk a little bit about what to be careful about or what to be careful of and know what you're getting into when you look for that full service mover. So if you've got any questions, I can answer those, or we can turn it over to David, whatever you guys think.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of overwhelm in the comments. We have Justinia here says she doesn't even know where to start with the questions. So why don't we start for you with a couple of basic questions, and then you guys, as you're listening and you have more specifics, we can certainly get into specific and individual situations. But he just went over a lot of different scenarios, and some of them are going to be best for your family and some of them are not going to be a good fit right now, but you might want to consider them in the future. So always keep in mind that a military move or a PCS move doesn't look the same every time for every family.
Correct. And I just want to stress that again, Military One Source has got, they've revamped that website, and it is a fantastic place to get information from.
For sure. So David, he talked about hiring your own movers either as a personally procured move, formerly called a Diddy move, or I'm also thinking there are times when we've had to move from an on-base house to an off-base house, or we were living off-base and then either the rank changed or the number of children and dependents changed, so we wanted to move into a different house. So there are definitely times in military life where you hire your own movers, either as a PCS move or just out of pocket on your own. And I want to know, what are the advantages and disadvantages of going out and hiring your own movers?
Sure. So thank you for the opportunity to share. JK has grown up as a consumer mover, a COD mover. We've had 40 years of experience there. So a lot of perspective that we can provide. No one knows better than a military member and a military spouse that moving is extremely stressful. Even when things go perfectly, the move is stressful. In fact, it's a well-known fact in our industry that moving is the third most stressful thing that you can go through behind death of a spouse and divorce. So it's critical to get that piece right. A huge portion of getting that right is selecting the right mover. And just a few tips in that regard. If you don't have any experience working with movers in a consumer space, in a COD space, as Brad has already pointed out, When you're moving with the military and it's a full service move, the movers that are under contract to perform those moves are driven by very strict metrics, quality metrics, claims metrics, and they can be suspended for not meeting standards for how they service the shipments, how they pack, how they load, what their claims performance is, what their documentation standards are. So as a military member moving with a full service move, you're highly protected in that regard. And the movers are chosen based on their quality scores. Not so in the consumer space. And as Brad pointed out, it really can be the wild, wild west with some good actors and some bad actors. So part of the success of a personal move will be in choosing the right mover, and just some important tips there. If you're selecting a mover, it's really a good idea to choose one that you know has experience in multiple disciplines. If the mover is only doing COD moves, that can be a red flag. It's not always a red flag, but it can be a red flag. If you select a mover that has experience doing multiple disciplines, doing government and military moves, doing corporate moves, and doing consumer moves, that mover will have experience being held to the type of disciplines that Brad described. And therefore, those will translate into coming into play in your moves as well. How do you select that mover? By reputation. Referrals are a great way to do it. If you have friends and family that have selected a mover that's done a great job for you, it's for them, it's likely that they'll also do a great job for you. Going online, you can find a lot of information in Google reviews. Better Business Bureau is a great source for knowing if you're dealing with a reputable mover. If you're looking at Google reviews, you want to look for review scores above a 4, and you want to look for review volumes that are up north of the 20, 30 reviews is a pretty small number. You're going to look for a mover that has upward of 100 Google reviews so you can get some play in there. Also, a very important website that you're going to see pop up momentarily in the chat window. If you're selecting an interstate mover, I would strongly encourage anyone selecting a mover, a consumer mover, to go to this website. It's a government website. Every qualified household goods carrier nationally will be found here. You just go to the website and click into the search field, the name of the moving company, and you will get a list of moving companies that fit that description. If you choose the one that you're considering using, you're going to get really good information about that mover. What you want to look for is two things. One is the size of their fleet, and number two is the number of complaints that have been filed with the FMCSA against that moving company. It's always annual. If you're seeing more than 20 or 30 complaints against that company, it's a very serious red flag, and I would strongly consider whether or not you would choose that company. Another important distinction, and this is really, really critical in selecting a reputable mover. If you look at the fleet size and the number is 0, it means they're not a mover, they're a broker. They are qualified to book your move, but that move is not going to move on one of their trucks. It's going to be contracted and outsourced to another moving company. In the nightmare move stories that many of you have probably heard about shipments being held hostage and a quote being issued and the cost of the move coming in at double, triple, quadruple the quote. Generally speaking, that happens when a broker has been hired and that broker outsources it to another mover that's not reputable. Be extremely, extremely cautious when selecting a broker. A reputable mover will always have its own trucks. And I would always encourage anyone who's going to hire their own mover to hire a company that's going to control the move themselves from start to finish. That's very important. These days, technology has come into play massively in the move process. You will really have 3 options. Well, let's say 4 options for how the mover will give you an estimate. One is they'll send someone to your home in a car who rings the doorbell, walks through your home with either an iPad or a clipboard, and gives you an estimate based on that physical survey. Option number 2 is a video survey where you're on a chat window, something like FaceTime. Some of the movers will have tools that they use for that personal interaction. And you'll be on video, and using your phone generally, you will walk that estimator through your house, and they'll take a full survey of your residence. Option 3 is a pretty cool new tool that's emerged in the industry in the last 2 years called a do-it-yourself survey. We use a company called Yembo. Brad also uses Yembo as a survey tool. You can click on a link from a text message. It'll pull up a video window, and using AI-driven technology, it will allow you, without having a surveyor involved, do a video survey of your home, which is converted into digital images, and therefore what we call a cube sheet, which is the list of items that are moving. The 4th option is a phone survey, where you're on the telephone, there's no video involved, and the surveyor is asking you questions about what's in your home. I would strongly caution anyone to avoid the phone survey option if you possibly can. It can function, but more often you're going to run into issues with estimate accuracy and mover reputability if they're recommending a phone survey versus one of those other options. Between the other 3, I actually recommend to people to use one of the video recorded options rather than the in-home survey, and I'll tell you why. If there are estimate accuracy issues, if there are challenges with the size of the move and leaving an overflow and those types of things, and there's an escalation to manage through, that video survey is a permanent record to demonstrate what you told the estimator was moving or not moving, what you told them you were going to pack and they were going to pack. And when challenges arise, it's best to just go to the tape, review what was said by the estimator, review what you said, and it's a great way of sticking to the facts as issues arrive after the fact. So when you get your estimate back, and I would strongly encourage anyone who doesn't have a reputable mover that they have experience with, and you're trying to choose a mover on your own, I strongly encourage multiple estimates, at least 2, preferably 3. You will be amazed at the differences that you will see in the estimates that come through. Always compare those estimates to each other. A good rule of thumb that I always provide to someone who's new to this is, before your estimators come through the house, count the number of sofas that you have in your residence. If when you're reviewing their documentation and their estimate, they got the number of sofas wrong, it's pretty likely there's a lot more that they got wrong as well. So again, having multiple estimates, having a basis of comparison will really help you choose the best option for the moving company. You will get many differences that you'll see in the estimates. Is there a shuttle being recommended or not recommended? Is there custom crating that's being recommended for artwork or especially fragile items? Those types of things will appear on some estimates, will not appear on other estimates. As Ernie Pena just pointed out, the lowest price is not always the best option, and it's really important to compare those estimates and see what exactly you're purchasing when you select that mover. Another very important point, and this is a distinct difference between a full service military move and a consumer move is how the claim is handled. If you've moved with the military, you're used to your damaged items and your missing items being covered, and you're kept whole for anything that's broken or lost during the move. Please keep in mind that is absolutely not automatically the case with a consumer move. There is a process called valuation. You can purchase outside insurance, but if you have not paid for the valuation coverage or you have not purchased outside insurance on your own, if there is damage or loss, the coverage that the mover is responsible for is minimal. This is a very important point as you're reviewing quotes and you're comparing costs. If the mover has not included full valuation coverage in the quote, and you can see it in the quote specifically, it means you do not have that coverage in place. And that's a very important question that you should be asking your estimator or your salesperson about what you're actually purchasing when you select that mover. I can't state this strongly enough. You have to leave yourself time to prepare properly. And this is really critical. Reviewing those estimates and asking the right questions, going through those estimates and making sure the mover has captured all the information about what's moving and what's not moving. If you're planning to do your own packing, if the mover is doing a full packing, something to keep in mind, and this is very important. If the mover has estimated that your home is going to include 150 boxes that need to be packed, and you say, I'm going to be able to save a bunch of money by getting my own boxes and doing that packing myself, that's absolutely true. You can save money, and you're also going to invest quite a bit of time. Something to keep in mind, 150 boxes, a moving company, as a rule of thumb, will use an average boxes per hour that they can pack of 7.
Oh, wow.
So 150 boxes equals 21 hours of packing. So if you're packing by yourself, you need to have at least 3, possibly 4 days reserved just to complete all that packing. Also keep in mind, if you're planning on doing your own packing, banana boxes from the grocery store are great for produce. They're not so great for ceramics. They're not so great for wine glasses. And it's a very important distinction. When you see crushing on a consumer move, often it's because glassware and fragile items have been packed in boxes that were intended for blankets and pillows. Movers' boxes are designed for a very specific purpose. A dish pack is designed for glasswares. It has a double wall of corrugate. It's designed to be able to support multiple hundreds of pounds on top of it for stacking purposes. And we would never pack glasses and dishware into what's called a book carton or a medium carton, which is designed for toys and smaller items and books. So just very important tips to keep in mind. If you're intending to save money, you can certainly do that, but preparing properly, educating yourself on the techniques that are involved, and getting the proper equipment and materials will absolutely contribute to success. Not doing that can certainly result in a very expensive failure. One more point in the comparison of estimates. As you're looking at the services, if you're coming out of an apartment or a townhome or an area that has tight streets and turns, a very important distinction on those estimates is going to be shuttle or no shuttle. Many military members have had that experience of living in close quarters where the big tractor trailer won't fit up close to the house. It requires a smaller truck to get in. In a consumer move, there is absolutely a cost for that. And please ask that question. If you do not see it on the estimate and you know you're in a place where tractor trailer access could potentially be a challenge, ask that question in advance It will save lots of headache on move day if that driver shows up and he can't get in, number one. And number two, if it's not on your estimate, it doesn't mean the moving company is not going to expect you to pay for that. That will tell you whether you have a reputable and prepared surveyor and salesperson, and those are very important distinctions. So I put together quite a monologue here, and I'm sorry for that. Once I get on a roll, I just get going. That's what I had prepared, Lizanne. I hope that's helpful, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Absolutely. You're so knowledgeable and so passionate, and it's easy to see, and we appreciate you being here so much. I do want to ask, once we go through the process and vet our movers and find who we want, and we ensure that it's not a broker, Brad, what are some of the questions that we don't know to ask? What are some of the things that we should be asking our movers before we officially select them?
Well, one of the things that I thought of that I know we talked about earlier that David didn't bring up yet, but one of the things is how the fuel surcharge can change on your estimate. We're seeing, obviously, we saw a huge spike in fuel over the last 60 days. And on the military tariff, we're up to 19% fuel surcharge, which if a shipment's going 3,500 miles, that can be $2,000 to $3,000. And I'm sure David has the same thing with his COD private moves. And so, David, I don't know if you want to talk about what you guys do a little bit to educate consumers on that.
Yeah, it's such an important point, Brad, and especially in this environment. In a normal environment with fuel prices, we can do an estimate in January, and there will be very little change in the fuel surcharge cost, even if the move is taking place in May and June. We've actually gone back in the last 30 days to anyone that has an estimate outstanding. When we do the estimate, of course, we're doing it based on current fuel prices. Mm-hmm. So someone who gets an estimate in March and is not moving until June, based on current trends, could be headed for an unpleasant surprise when they see that the fuel surcharge that we estimated at the time the survey was done is dramatically lower than the cost of fuel, and therefore the cost of the fuel surcharge when the move is taking place. So we actually went back to all of our outstanding estimates over the last 30 days. We let them know that that's a trend that they need to keep an eye on and to plan accordingly with their budgets, that the fuel surcharge will adjust based on then current fuel prices when the shipment loads. Thanks for bringing that up, Brad. It's a very important point for all consumer moves to be aware of.
For sure. The fuel prices are hurting everyone right now. And our driver here was commenting that paying for fuel is nauseating at the moment. You did have a question. I just wanted to clarify. What David was talking about earlier was the process of packing yourself and then hiring movers that are not the military movers, because some people do that for a PPM or a Diddy move. You can take all the time that you want to pack your own house and then just hire help on moving day. So Leanne, I believe your confusion is that you're thinking of the military movers. They do have rules that they can't accept a box that's been packed by the owner. They have to at least visually inspect all the boxes. But David, do those same rules apply to a third-party mover that's just been hired to help me load my things onto the U-Haul trailer?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the answer is no, they absolutely do not apply. So in the consumer space, a consumer mover will sell you anything you want to buy. If you want a full-service move, you can certainly get that white glove service, soup to nuts. You don't have to touch or handle anything. Mm-hmm. You can also have the mover come out and say, I want you to handle all the furniture and all the boxes that I've packed, but I'm going to do all the packing. Mm-hmm. You can buy the boxes from the mover. In some cases, you can get high quality used boxes from the mover at a much lower or even no cost in some cases. And again, that's a great way to save money if budget is an issue. There's a wide range of things that you do. On a do-it-yourself move, other mover options, there are companies that will drop a container on your driveway, allow you to fill it up yourself. So you're doing really all the work in that case, except getting it from A to B. And there are several examples of that are available. Surprisingly, they're not always less expensive than a full service move or a partial service move. So I would always do my homework and compare even the do-it-yourself options to full service options. Sometimes folks are surprised that they can hire movers for the same cost as a do-it-yourself.
For sure. We've run into that with the pods companies, because
That's
they
right.
charge you for storage, even if you're trying to do a door-to-door. I believe pods requires a storage time in between, and adding that extra step adds a huge amount of time and cost to the move. So
Right, and I'll just add also with this packing by owner versus a carrier packed when the movers do it. The issue has a lot to do with liability than anything else. You know, in the military world, when you do a full service move, we're liable for replacement value coverage for anything that gets packed. So we want to make sure that anything that is packed by owner, that it is, before we take it, that is packed correctly, and we will have to go through those cartons. You know, on the commercial side, when David does it, I mean, I don't want to say exactly how you do things, David, but I would imagine that there's some kind of waiver that they sign off on that you don't cover packed by owner items in those cartons.
Yep, that's exactly right. Particularly when other than professional moving boxes have been used, that's a real challenge. So if someone has done their own packing, those self-packed items are not covered against breakage.
Right. That's really helpful to know. And I think, one of the questions that we get so much from our audience in all of our different webinars is about that claims process. We are going to do a special show dedicated just to claims to get a little deeper dive in it. But can you walk us through the specifics? How do claims work when you hire your own movers?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've purchased full valuation coverage, it works almost the same as if it's a full service move with the military. So the mover is going to come out and we'll always do an inventory. We'll always be responsible for documenting pre-existing damage, damage to the residence, as well as damage to the furniture. Packed items are recorded. If a cup has a chip or an item has pre-existing damage to it, it's documented before it's packed. And the mover has responsibility for recording that. And then at time of delivery, and this is really, really important, particularly with a consumer move, I always encourage our customers to get involved in the checkoff process. We mandate to our drivers, if the customer won't do the checkoffs, you will do the checkoffs. Bad things happen when the checkoffs are not completed. It's a lot of additional work, but in many cases, you will save a lot of heartache by confirming everything is there at time of delivery. So as that delivery takes place and you're checking off the sticker numbers and the inventoried items, it's also very important at time of delivery to take the time to inspect each item as it comes off the truck. Any damage should be noted on the inventory or the bingo sheet at the time that the delivery is taking place. Any missing items should be recorded. Some companies will be in the habit of denying claims if they're not recorded as damaged and documented as damaged at the time of delivery. You do have up to 9 months to file your claim. That's federal regulation. So you do have plenty of time to get the documentation completed and submitted to the moving company. But I can't stress enough the importance of taking the time to document what you see at time of delivery. Once that occurs, if there is damage, the mover always will look to the option of repair versus replacement. If the item can be repaired and restored to its original condition that way, they will seek to do that. If it cannot be repaired, that's when replacement cost would come in.
So tell us a little bit about the importance of, I know the movers document your items and your inventory. Somebody just asked a question about taking photos and documenting the same way as she would with an Army move. Tell us about the importance of documenting it on our end, on the consumer end.
Yeah, same thing applies. So when the drivers do their inventory at the origin, I really encourage people to participate in that together with the driver. As you're looking at the inventory and you haven't participated in it, and you see standard notations rather than specific notations, that can be a bit of a red flag. You want to make sure that the driver is noting the specific condition of every item that they inventory. And at time of delivery, same thing. Going through, and if you note a broken leg or a significant scratch on a dining room table, or damage that obviously was not present when the shipment loaded, documenting that on the inventory, and it's really the consumer's responsibility to do that. That's a very important step.
And David, just to clarify, that inventory process looks the same whether you're using the military movers or whether you're hiring your own as a third party?
Yeah, Lizanne, that's absolutely correct. It's virtually identical. No difference in the inventory tools that would be used by a military mover versus a consumer mover.
Interesting.
Correct.
I didn't realize that. So that is good to know. And David, I wanted to return to the point that you mentioned earlier about using used boxes and boxes that are not designed for that purpose, because I know I have made that mistake before trying to save some money. We've done PPMs 3 times now. And I know one of the first times we thought we were going to be really smart and save a lot of money by getting all these used boxes from the commissary, which they just kind of discard outside by the dumpsters of the commissary anyway. So they're all flattened and they're all different sizes and they were all designed for different types of food. And we did save money, but I realized there were actually 2 drawbacks to that. One was, like you mentioned, the boxes are not designed to move household goods. And so some of them do crush easier. But the other thing is that they don't stack well. If you're loading your own trailer or using a U-Haul or anything like that, you have all these boxes of different sizes. And so on later moves, when we went through U-Haul or through the local moving company and bought boxes that were designed for moves, we noticed a huge difference, because not only did everything stand up better, but it packed so much better. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Do you have any recommendations for a good way to get quality boxes at a good rate?
Yeah, again, most consumer movers, if you call them, they'll have high quality used boxes for sale. If not used, I would strongly encourage making the investment in new cartons rather than trying to do the banana box approach. It's just, it frequently doesn't end well for exactly the reasons you just pointed out.
Yep.
And Courtney's bringing up a similar point. It's popular to use those plastic, Rubbermaid totes. A lot of us have them in the garage or for the Christmas decorations and things like that. And those can definitely crack and break when they are stacked. So thank you for bringing that up, Courtney.
Okay. Do we have any other audience questions? And while we wait for those, Brad, what were you going to add?
I was just going to add, we're going down the claims road here, which I know is going to be a future webinar, but I'll just let everybody know out there that, there always seems to be this misconception with military members out when they're working with the drivers and the crews out there, that the drivers don't pay for the claims. The company's got insurance for that, right? And they just put it through there, but that's not true in our industry. It depends on what company the drivers work for, but most times the drivers are responsible for claims on the items. It might not be the entire claim, might be a maximum claim amount that the driver gets charged back. But if the driver is negligent or not doing their job or not monitoring their crews and there are claims to that job, the driver will pay for that. So I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, there seems to be a misconception that drivers don't pay for claims, but most of the time they are. It just depends on the company, but I would probably say 75-80% of the time the driver will be responsible for that claim.
Thank you for clarifying that. I want to go to one of our audience member has a question. Jason Hopkins asked, Brad mentioned requesting a TSP. What is the process for a member to do this, and where do they start?
Right. So the best thing to do is, if you've moved with the TSP management company in the past and you had a great experience, either try to contact your move coordinator back who you worked with before, or find somebody there to say, hey, I'm going to book my move. I need to move June 23rd. Will you help me select your services again? And it can be a cumbersome process, but it's much easier than dealing with, a bad moving experience. So I have had several people, I just had one today that reached out to me that's moving from Fort Belvoir down to MacDill that wants to move June 23rd. So after this call, I'll be calling her to kind of walk her through the process. But it's a mutual effort between the military member, the TSP, which was myself, and the personal property shipping office to make sure that the move gets booked on a specific TSP that we handle. I won't go into all the details there because it would be a whole nother hour-long webinar. But at the end of the day, people should want to do your move again. And if you contact the move management company that did it in the past, they should help you with that process. We moved some people 4 and 5 times, and every 2 years I look for their email because I know it's going to be coming. So it's great to be able to help them like that. And I wish we could help more people. So again, just contact your move management company. Again, my email is bradr@chartertsp.com. If we can try to help you in any way. I know peak season's coming up and we're already seeing quite a few bookings for, after May 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So things are going to fill up very quickly. And unfortunately, I think the industry will be worse off than it was last year.
You're a brave soul giving out your email address, especially after
I've got it right here.
It's going to be awful.
Brad, I appreciate you bringing that up, though. I think when we've had you and Ernie, the driver, on before, he mentioned that when you get those personalized requests to repeat a move for a prior client, that it's cool because you guys actually spend extra time and extra effort, and it's like a motivating factor. So I would definitely want to choose someone that's going to pay extra attention to me and really go above and beyond to make it a good experience. So I appreciate you sharing those tips.
Yeah, and there's a sense of pride when you get that request job again to say, hey, I'll just bring up Ernie's name because he's been on here a lot. I want to move with Ernie again. I mean, Ernie loves to hear that. I love to hear that. And when you get that move, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure, at least we do, to make sure that that military member gets the same level of service as they had last time, or else I see it as a failure. And then they shouldn't have wanted to move with us again anyway. So the military members when they PCS should do whatever they can to stack the odds in their favor. And if they've had positive experiences in the past, request them again.
It's wonderful. Thank you. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So I want to go to Georgia Cooper Angels, who asks, let's chat about tips to the crews and drivers. How does that work for military or consumer moves?
Brad, you want to go first?
Well, this is a pretty broad question here. Tips to the crews and drivers. I mean, we've had Ernie on here before, and we've talked about the things and the issues and the stresses that the drivers go through, and making sure that they are prepared to be able to provide great service. One of the things that we always try to do is make sure that drivers have their orders at least 7 days in advance so that they've got time to adequately set up good labor. Obviously, labor is a huge issue now. So try to, with our independent moving company, American Group Logistics, we tried to do everything we can to support the driver so that he can do his job correctly with the customer. I mean, it's very stressful, and we talked about this on the first one, when Ernie's got, he's trying to inventory, he's trying to manage the crew, and he's got to worry about what's going to happen the next day because he just found out that it's going to be a shuttle that he's got to go deliver or load. It's just, what kind of support does the office give to the drivers to make their lives easier when they're in the residence with the customer, or even just when they're driving? I mean, so trying tips for the driver and the crew is just make sure that you're getting the support that you need from the office that you're working for to make sure that you can do your job accurately when you get to the residence. I guess that's my broad answer to that question.
I think she might have meant tips like money tips, I think.
Oh, that kind of tip.
Like Kevin McAllister, Home Alone.
Oh, I'm rereading that now.
Well, I think when Ernie was on last time, he did
Yeah.
say tips are always appreciated, but they were not expected. And
That's
so
it.
there's no set amount. Is that the same for a commercial move where I've hired my own movers out of pocket as it would be for a military company?
I'll say absolutely. So, as Ernie stated on the last one, tips are appreciated, always appreciated, never expected. If the crew has done a great job, they will certainly appreciate a little something extra, but it's certainly not an expectation.
Wonderful.
I apologize for
Brad,
reading that wrong.
Thanks for digging deep for those tips and tricks there.
He was like, off the top of my head, I will give you my best tips.
All right.
Well, you have both been just an absolute wealth of information. We're so appreciative of having you on the show. Lizanne, I think there was maybe one or two more questions if you want to address those. And I'm going to get Wheel of Names all set up for a lucky winner.
Yes, we did have a few more come in here at the end. So not to be negative, we do try and focus on all the positive things that are happening in the industry right now. But on the chance that someone does have a bad experience with a moving company, is there a process for reporting that or for getting them, as Janine says, blacklisted?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So there's really no such thing as a blacklist, but there are avenues of support that you can go through. I already mentioned the FMCSA site. On consumer moves, if you have an issue with a mover's performance, estimate is off, lots of damage, delays, or unprofessionalism, if they don't resolve their issues, that's a good way of making sure that there's, number one, someone who's engaged that has to, they're required to follow up with. Number two, it's a red flag for other consumers that there have been problems with this move. And that the link to that website is there. And that's a very, very helpful website. State by state, for local moves, for intrastate moves, the answer to that question can vary state to state. In some states, the movers are governed by specific laws and rules that they have to follow. And you can go to either the Office of the Attorney General or some consumer protection body within the state. In cases where that's not available, many cities have investigative reporting that will absolutely take this stuff on. Moving companies can be frequent flyers on those programs, and they can be very helpful. In terms of the military, if there's an issue on your military move, going up through chain of command will result in an escalation, and the military contracted movers can be suspended for not following military protocols, including late deliveries, excessive claims, or documentation issues.
Right.
Sure.
And the customer satisfaction survey is a huge part of that. So just every time you move a full service move, make sure you do that customer satisfaction survey.
Awesome.
Yes, we want to emphasize that again. That is specific to the military move. Everyone is invited to complete a customer satisfaction survey afterwards. And that is literally the number and the system that the DoD uses for awarding those contracts. So please fill out your surveys, and the more feedback that we get, then the more accurate response we're going to have for future families trying to move.
And now it's everybody's favorite part of the webinar, and the real reason you're all here, in addition to excellent information, the giveaway. And today we are giving away a moving basket chock full of fun moving items like tape and helpful things, and then also some stickers from our Stress Less PCET kit. And here we go. Click to spin. Yay!
It always lags.
Maybe. All right, Janine Ristis, we have a winner, which is amazing. If you would please message the PCS Grades Facebook page so that we can make sure that you get your gift. That would be awesome. Thank you both for being on here with us and giving us the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of moving. You're both just such blessings for our community to be able to share all of your knowledge and experience with us. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you all. And I invite everyone to come back next week. We will have another weekly webinar. Next week's topic is PCS employment, taking your job with you. So this is specifically for spouses and family members who are trying to have that PCS portable job that you got to take from one part of the country to the next. So stay tuned for that next week. Until then, this too shall PCS.